Free energy devices can change all this in a remarkably short space of time. Enough electric power and energy in the right places, and we will have undreamed of markets for every other kind of goods and materials and appliances our factories and shops can turn out. And so goes the simple formula. Give the world enough electrical energy and you raise the world's standard of living. Raise the world's standard of living and you raise the world's economy. The best way to get the total concept of what free energy means to the world today is to suppose that the wheel were just now being discovered. To then visualize the free energy motor pulling the wheel into the air into an entirely new dimension. Industry must realize that these devices will provide power for automobiles, trains, great ocean liners, and spaceships, as well as for such things as hearing aids, portable television sets, refrigerators, and will even furnish power, light, and heat for large cities or communities. Our free energy devices will do all these things by perpetual space forces of magnetism, gravity, and electromagnetism. And these forces alone, forces which are free and available everywhere on the face of the earth and throughout the universe. While the world is still groveling under the ancient edict that called for earning one's bread by the sweat of one's brow, the question of how free energy devices will affect employment is a paramount one. But Mr. Carr feels that his inventions and discoveries truly represent the inception of a basic new industry, which for sheer size and scope might be properly compared with the steel, automotive, and aircraft industries combined. He believes that pioneering in a free energy will automatically introduce a new concept of employment practices and employee relationships. Although the space people themselves have no contact with Otis T. Carr and have had no direct hand in his work, it is safe to assume that they have been watching it carefully. In addition, Tesla and the Dove have assuredly directed it from the scientific department of Shambhala, making certain that it will fit into the divine plan at exactly the right moment. This, then, is the right moment. The grave danger that might have turned the entire enterprise into a gargantuan war machine is now over, for with the straightening of the Earth's axis completed, the hierarchy and the space people will be able to neutralize major war efforts. There may be sporadic minor clashes, but even these may now be avoided. Lord Michael, Prince of the Archangels, has had such tremendous success in his house-cleaning efforts that the final physical plane adjustments are not likely to be too formidable. It was that keen observer of nature, now the ascended Master Saint Germain, who in former embodiment as Francis Bacon, set the stage for the new civilization which he is building today. His basic plan for mankind was revealed in a simple prefatory remark in Novum Organum. If man would conquer nature, man must join with nature. Francis Bacon is an outstanding example of a man who successfully refused through 70,000 years as a civilization builder to fight against nature. As a result of this simple cooperative method, the floodgates of wisdom remained open to him. This resolute leader of humanity could look back down the corridors of the centuries with full continuity of consciousness and review the events which had carried the whole human race to the threshold of the Aquarian Age. Transmutation is the keynote of the Aquarian program for mankind. Any effort which man now makes to join nature helps to lift some of the heavy karma he has created by fighting nature in the past. Otis T. Carr has recognized the true responsive nature of the atom when it is treated as an intelligence. Essentially, what we have done is collect, arrange, adapt, and orchestrate some of nature's compositions into harmonious assemblage, he explains. They are fashioned out of God's creation. They are instruments of peace. Their music is for the worlds of man, for all the worlds of man. We have come very, very far into the light since the dark, uncertain days of 1955, when it seemed that the worst cataclysmic prophecies of Armageddon were about to be fulfilled. As author H. Matthews so joyfully states, "Be of good courage, for we have God with us, and we have the spirit of Tesla with us." Yes, indeed, we have all this, and the white dove too. We seem to hear the gentle rush of white wings around us. We seem to hear the voice of Nicola enfolding us, comforting us, assuring us that he still walks beside the one who was obedient to his command. Go forth, explore space. There in the limitless azure skies is your rendezvous with destiny. The sea, the interminable sea, rolls on, a fluid portion of eternity. Wisdom, interminable wisdom, rolls on to mark the course of eternity. Jewels dropped at random are found, and their richness is recognized by children of eternity. And such children walk among the masses, unrecognized for a time. Many of your years pass, a gem was dropped and found, and clasped close by a youth whom you now know. He is much loved here, and I send him again a word to lead him home. He knows me well, and those who remember me gently call me Nick. Good night. Call me Nick. Next part, let there be light. On one occasion, Tesla was presented with a medal, a symbol of gratitude, together with a paraphrase of Pope's lines on Newton. Nature and nature's laws lay hid in night. God said, "Let Tesla be," and all was light. This was the Venusian, the Superman who arrived on this earth in a spaceship as a tiny baby, and who grew to maturity to fulfill his great mission, that of assisting ascended Master Saint Germain, to set up the machinery for the new scientific civilization that will lift the Aquarian age to heights of glory. 2,000 years earlier, Saint Germain, then Joseph, watched over the babe Jesus while a radiant space vehicle, the Star of Bethlehem, hovered above the stable. Few people on this planet today have any conception of the Herculean accomplishments of Tesla on behalf of the forces of light, but on other planets in this solar system and in systems beyond, the people are well aware that they can extend the hand of friendship to us now in this year of 1958 because of the mighty works of Tesla. There are many Earth people who will feel even now that Tesla should have found a way to overcome the obstacles placed in his path by the forces of darkness, that he should have forced a showdown that would have thrust his inventions upon the world, regardless of the ignorance and ambitions of a petty-minded opposition. But like the spaceman that he was, Tesla knew that he could not encourage us. No, that he could only encourage us. He could not force his light upon us. He could only respect our free will. He was aware that humanity was plagued by the forces of darkness. He well knew that people were unable to see the significance of his role as a light bearer. He was never bitter, never disappointed when people failed to appreciate his efforts. He would only smile his slow, sweet smile in response to compassionate friends who felt they must offer apologies for human arrogance, for human self-will, and then he would quote in answer a favorite stanza from Goethe's Faust. "The God that in my bosom lives can move my deepest inmost soul. Power to all my thoughts he gives, but outside he has no control." Well did Tesla know that each and every individual must find his own Christ center, must contact his own source. For the doctrine of vicarious atonement is a vicious one, an escapist dream. Each must transmute his own misguided energy. Each must carve out and travel the razor-edged path to the one. Tesla's inventions can make the journey easier, as can those of his disciples, Matthew and Carr. But only God can say to each pilgrim on the path, "Here is my gift of violet fire. Accept it, use it, transmute your past mistakes. Put your lower worlds in order, then come home to me." There are those who will dispute the advantages of Tesla's inventions and present developments made by Matthew Carr and others who follow in Tesla's footsteps, arguing that machinery has nothing to do with discipleship. There are those who will say that we must not use a mechanistic approach, such as the anti-war machine, in trying to solve our problems, that we must use only love and understanding. But this attitude stems from the dreadful devoteeism generated under the misused influence of the sixth ray. Jesus was a practical man who lived in the workaday world. He made his ascension by the application of scientific principles, which is the only method anyone can use. It is only the impractical mystic who views science as a handicap. It is quite true that if men and women of goodwill could generate a sufficient amount of love and understanding, the course of history could be changed at once, but the change would still come about scientifically, for the energies generated in this way are simply collected by angelic forces acting as accumulators and then poured into certain specific areas of atomic matter, freeing it from low karmic vibrations and raising its frequency so it can function with greater freedom. There is nothing mystical in the process. There is nothing mystical about an angel. When angels walked and talked with men, before the laggards came, they were accepted as a necessary adjunct to successful human evolution. And indeed they are. They are not any more mystical than trees, rocks, soil, or rivers. They are not one whit more mystical than the pigeons in the park or Tesla's favorite dove. It is the dark forces who have conjured up that phony mystical story so that people would feel that they had to be practical in the materialistic meaning of the word and depend upon a job, a boss, a national ruler, a military machine, instead of simply depending upon God and his adepts and his angels. So let us not despise a mechanistic approach which will allow us to lay down our weapons and give us the leisure time to develop the educated heart of love, the enlightened mind of understanding. As the ancient maxim advises, do not count the teeth of a camel which has been given to you with love, but ride it with thanks in your heart that you have a vehicle which will carry you safely through the hazards of the desert. Remember, too, that Tesla's anti-war machine is simply a mechanistic version of the wall of light built by Saint Germain's disciples through directed and controlled thought. But with this difference, Saint Germain's wall of light must, like the Hierarchs themselves, function without interfering with man's free will. It would not be occultly permissible for adepts or disciples to build a wall of light which would cause all bombs to explode, as Tesla's anti-war machine will do. By taking a human embodiment, Tesla could overcome that occult fiat to the extent that he could counter with his human free will the destructive weapons fashioned by other human free wills. That is why adepts in ascended bodies have to work through disciples who are in physical incarnation. The disciple is perfectly free at all times to do or say anything, even when the word or deed may actually work against the forces of light. Of course, in that case, the disciple must carry the burden of the resultant karma. But a master is not occultly permitted to warn the disciple against errors. If he did so, he would interfere with the free will of the disciple and deprive the disciple of learning through his own mistakes. A master working in the light never follows a disciple around telling him what to do and what not to do. On the other hand, black adepts do nothing else, and they even enlist the aid of parents, teachers, doctors, newspaper writers, and 1,000 other tools to assist them in their nefarious practice of enslaving the human mind through dictatorship. This kind of tyranny exists in virtually every home today, and it is a well-known fact that the forces of darkness are especially proud of the inroads they have made in destroying family love and harmony. Masters of the ageless wisdom do not direct their disciples to follow certain lines of thought or point out to them certain ideals which they should absorb. The disciple must at all times use his own discrimination and must through his own efforts learn to handle only that type of energy which will increase his God powers. Over the years, many disciples have been sufficiently alert to apply ideas which they learned from Tesla. For disciples range far and wide in their search for the truth, striving to recognize it and greeting it with joy when they find it. The mystic or the devotee usually makes the mistake of searching for truth only in nice but innocuous books, respectable surroundings, and sanctimonious environments. Therefore, it has not occurred to many persons to look into the findings of an electrical scientist like Tesla to confirm the truths put forward by Ascended Master Saint Germain. One of the most interesting examples of alert searching has come to light in a story reported by Elsie Bulow and published in Fate magazine in November 1957. Mrs. Bulow had worked with a group of Saint Germain's disciples who originally built the protecting wall of light around North, Central, and South America. Mrs. Bulow was well acquainted with the work of Tesla, and she explains in a portion of her article quoted below from Fate, she knew his ideas could be used in a thoroughly practical manner, even by an individual. She then demonstrated this in many ways. She told the author that in experimenting with the Tesla methods, she found the techniques to be identical with those taught by Saint Germain and other hierarchs. When we lived in Illinois, we had a little boy terrier named Midgie. When Midgie was 9 months old, she was ready for love. We were filled with consternation at the thought of all the dogs in the neighborhood congregating outside the door. What could we do? I was reminded of the scientist Nikola Tesla. His specific knowledge was four-dimensional. He believed in the spiritual nature of the universe and acted on the principle that all is governed by immutable law, that intelligence is present at every point in so-called space and can be acted upon through the power of thought. He astonished the scientific world by stating, over 20 years ago, that a wall of light, invisible and impregnable, could be built around a city. Its power to withstand any impact would be greater than that of any physical substance known to man, he said. Tesla was using thought dynamically to establish this wall of light from out of the very atmosphere in which we live, move, and have our being. He called this invisible substance intelligent energy, which could be thought into existence. He knew that thought was creative. Building this wall was not a supernatural feat, for we were dealing with energy. I had already learned to draw this wall of light around myself. Therefore, it was not an impossibility to conceive of a wall of light around our home. We decided that a wall of light to exclude all amorous male dogs, to repel any dog which touched its charge area. Everybody has an atmosphere or electrical field, and the atmosphere in which we live is filled with invisible atoms. The center of these atoms is the intelligence which keeps the electrons revolving around it, like the planets around the sun, in an orderly fashion according to law. The pattern of the atoms changes with changing thoughts. With the above understanding, we visualized the wall of light around our house and its environs. We conceived of the outer surface as sending forth charges of electric energy, which would act as a repellent and result in the completely discouraging all male dogs. We watched from the window as the dogs came eagerly and confidently toward our home. There were a half dozen of them, all sizes. They came as far as the place where we had visualized and felt or accepted the wall of light. There they stopped. They tried to come further, but evidently could not, and so circled the house in perplexity. Then, dog fashion, they lay down to await developments. But one by one, unable to approach one step nearer their heart's desire, they left the scene not to return. Mrs. Bulow also said she uses the wall of light around her automobile at all times, and it was demonstrated that she was saved from car accidents on more than one occasion. As she stated in the article, she long ago learned to draw the wall of light around herself. Later, she lived in Chicago for a period, and there she found that she could draw the wall of light about her on the coldest winter days, and that she could walk through the biting cold winds blowing from Lake Michigan, and yet remain comfortably warm. On hot summer days, she used it in a similar manner to keep herself comfortably cool. Most of Saint Germain's disciples can report similar personal experiences with the wall of light, which for individual use is visualized as a great tube of light, about 12 feet high and 9 feet in diameter. The light should be visualized as cascading down around this tube like sunlight flashing on snow. It is important to understand that in the days before the laggards came to the earth, every person was born equipped with this tube of light. The tube of light afforded positive protection against accidents, disharmony of any kind, and served as added purpose of constantly radiating forth pure energy, which kept the surrounding atmosphere fragrant and refreshed. Therefore, wherever a human being moved, he was rendering a constant service to his Creator by spreading radiant light. Now, during the Aquarian Age, all persons must rebuild this tube of light. In these early years of the new era, the tube has been used only by interested disciples who were eager to experiment with the technique. But as the age advances, each and every person will be called to the ranks of discipleship. That will be the only type of classroom work on this planet. Those who cannot or will not serve the light on one or more of the rays, and who refuse to take part in New Age techniques designed to banish disease, death, and disharmony, will be removed to a specially prepared planet with low vibrations. There they can experiment with their own free will, miscreations, until such time as they are ready to qualify energy constructively. In these latter days, since the axis of the Earth is straightened, permitting the vibratory action of the planet to be rapidly increased, in order to help individuals to reach the ascension frequency, it would indeed be the part of wisdom to seriously construct and use the tube of light. Each individual should use it not only for himself, but for others. It is usually not wise to inform the person who is being assisted of the help that is being offered in silence. This knowledge often causes antagonism, which defeats the whole effect because the person who is being helped is, through his rebellion, accumulating karma more rapidly than it can be dispelled. In fact, the golden rule of the new golden age will be found in that one word, silence. People could halt half of the trouble in the world today if they would just stop chattering like monkeys in a tree and listen to the voice of the silence that speaks from the depths of each beating heart. In addition to using the wall of light around yourself, it would indeed be wise for every mother and father to keep the wall of light constantly around their children. It can be used either to make a person invisible or for protection. It is even bulletproof, but it serves as a protective device only. Most people will feel that it is assuredly a sufficient reward. This is but if it serves as a protective device only, most people will feel that it is assuredly a sufficient reward. This is a mistake, for in dealing with God's laws, it is extremely unwise to place any limitations on them. The gambling attitude of, oh well, I'll take a chance, what have I got to lose? Maybe it will work, and if it does, I'm that much ahead, is an attitude that might well carry one through a day at Halia or even at Las Vegas. But in building the tube of light, one should begin by making an affirmation that is free from limitation. I place a wall of light around myself that keeps me invisible, invincible, and invulnerable to everything that is unlike the Christ, is a free avowal. But it must not be left high and dry on the mental plane, for there it will prove sterile. Remember that most of the sorry individuals who were bottled up in the compound for so long were, for the most part, intellectuals. It was their lack of feeling that prevented them from expressing love for the light. Therefore, when thinking the tube of light into manifestation, it is necessary to feel very deeply about the glory of serving the light. There must be no feeling of personal glory, but rather a feeling that one is being absorbed, body, mind, and soul, back into the cosmic glory of God, which we once knew when we emerged as white fire beings from the flaming heart of Alpha and Omega. The wall of light, or tube of light, is formed of electronic substance, which is the primal life substance released from the great central sun of the galaxy, the twin flames of Alpha and Omega. So we, as individualized sparks from the heart of that same sun, emerged in physical life surrounded by that protective God substance. Since we lost contact with our source, we must now regain the full realization of our divinity, and our efforts to reform the tube of light around ourselves signifies that we are once more willing to serve the light by using the electronic substance of light itself. There is nothing mystical or mysterious about forming the tube of light, as Mrs. Bulow has so clearly shown. It is a strictly scientific matter, as practical and demonstrable as the multiplication tables. Of course, the individual in his heart must know that God power is the only sustaining power in the universe. God is an invented name and should not be used in building the tube of light if an individual feels that it has something to do with a church going. If that concept gets in the way, it is better to simply realize that God manifests as light, and in this galaxy as the particular light from Alpha and Omega. This electronic light is everywhere and is completely responsive to human thought. Thought is a rate of vibration which creates things. The tube of light which you build around yourself will take on the quality of your own thought.